welcome to Thursday night around 4. Sorry, a bit late start here. Usually trying to get started at 7, but let's get right into the games. I'm going to do a catch-up on all the games, and then I might try to do some calculation myself with the engine off sometime tonight. But we got a pretty exciting night. We got a big matchup, Dane against Connor on board 1. So these guys are both in the lead with 2.5 points. We've got Chris Kalina against Thomas on board 2. Both these games are pictured in the camera feed. Also going to get the stream pulled up here on my phone so I can read the chat. Just give me a moment here. All right, got that done. So very strong players here. By the way, the ratings shown here, they're pulled through by GGT. They're their FIDE ratings. So board 1 here is actually between Connor's 2180, Dane maybe 2130, and Thomas probably 2050 if I had to guess, and Chris is maybe around 2000. Board 3, we've got Ryan Sharoma against Eddie Wasserman, everyday Eddie. So Eddie plays huge number of tournament games, and Ryan, very young talent who also plays a lot of tournament nights himself. We've got tournament director, national master Nathan Hoover against club regular Yuval Yuvi Shemesh. And Nathan, I was talking to him last night. He told me he's trying to find a gambit against every single opening, so we'll see if he actually managed to do that tonight. On board 5, we have another interesting matchup. We have up-and-coming young player Albert Yang, who had a spectacular mate against. He's pretty low rated. Yeah, you can see his FIDE rating 4019, but his USCF rating is pretty low too. But he's a junior player, obviously up-and-coming, and going to be up towards expert before too long. And played some spectacular tactics earlier in the tournament against Arvind. And he is currently facing Robert Donahue, who is 2150, excellent calculator, but plays an extremely dubious opening every single week. He loves playing dubious openings. He loves playing crazy stuff. And we can already see on this board that much lower rated player Albert has got a winning advantage out of the opening, move 11, so we'll have to come back to this one. Norm against Michael. Okay, Norm is the house player, tournament director of the open section, and kind of fills in the open or the premier section as needed. So it looks like there were odd number of players in the premier section. That's also something to note. I'm noticing the pairings are a lot different than what were originally posted, so the players might not be quite as prepared this week. The games are on Lichess, but the club is kind of restrictive about, like, they don't want the games to get out there as much, so I make the Lichess broadcast private. You also can get at the games on the Chess Castle website, so just Google Chess Castle Minnesota and go to the game broadcast link. And then you can actually follow all 8 games live. So yeah, again, Chess Castle Minnesota website, click Games Broadcast, and you can actually follow the DGT broadcast live. But this Lichess broadcast, I've got locked down to private. Yeah, and I'm definitely gonna follow I'm gonna be following the top boards. I'm just trying to get through quick initial summary, but yes. So let me actually drop that in the comments. I can actually pull that up and give you a link to the live broadcast. So let me just get that done quick. Yes. Okay, and I got the stream pulled up now. Yeah, this is actually a totally viable thing you can get done for your guys' clubs too. If you guys have DGT boards, there's no reason why. To my knowledge, we're like the second club to be doing this after St. Louis, who has full-time staff and stuff. But a lot of clubs got their games on the DGT broadcast, on the Lead Chess broadcast, but I don't think too many people have commentators. But let me just go ahead and pull up the broadcast. And I will link that in the chat here. All right, so try that link out. Oh, you can see the board got kind of messed up as I was navigating there. And you should be able to follow the top boards live. But yeah, we're trying to kind of keep the games locked down a bit, keep the national advantage, right? That is it's an interesting topic in the US, right? Because we want to get more professional like Europe. We want to get game broadcasts. We want to get games in the database. But, if one state's games are all in the database and another state is having everything locked down, it's a bit of an unfair advantage. But I think we want to just get everyone towards what Europe's got going on, which is pretty much games recorded everywhere. So, I want to try to promote that as much as possible, but we are trying to also respect players' privacy. So, yeah, definitely, I think a link in the chat is not a huge deal because only really people watching the broadcast are going to be able to see that and click that. So, okay. On board 7, we have Thaddeus against Jeremy. So we got a nice game in the open section. So this is actually low-rated players. We have two sections of this tournament, the Premier and the Open. So the Premier is 1,700 plus, and traditionally mostly attracts 1,900 plus players. But you also will get some exceptions like Albert Yang here, who, if they're up and coming, even if they're way underrated, they'll allow them in the Premier section. So we've kind of got the open section, which is mostly players, I would say 1,000 to 1,800. And then we've got the Premier section, which is players mostly 1,900 to 2,100 with a couple mix-ins of underrated players. So it's a pretty nice tournament to play in if you ever thinking about playing in it yourself, because you really get a competitive game every single week. It's pretty rare there's a huge rating differential. And if there is a huge rating differential, you're probably getting a game like Albert against Robert, where the lower rated player still has great chances. And then on board 8, wow, we got 2 open boards this week, so that's actually pretty nice. So board 7 and 8 are both probably boards 1 and 2 in the open section, because also noticing these players as open players. So Daniel is one of these stronger players in the open section who probably could play Premier if he wants to, but just getting his sights set on the tournament scene. But very strong, performing very well in the open section every month. And then Vincent actually had game of the week last week. He had a nice exchange sacrifice, and in the conversion he sacked a knight for 3 pawns that the engine loved. So he played a really great game last week that actually kind of outclassed a lot of the Premier section games for game quality. So we've got a pretty nice club here, and a lot of interesting boards. But let's actually get into some of the games now that we've kind of gone through the matchups. Board 1 here is definitely the most interesting. Both players kind of heavy hitters in the club. Connor pretty much dominating everyone, and Dane always beating up on everyone too, but not quite to the same extent as Connor. Both are 2,100 plus USCF players, and both in shared lead of the tournament right now. So this is a pretty important game. I see Dane starting with a Nimzo, Connor starting with a Nimzo and then actually not going for it, playing D5. Okay, so Dane every game D4 player, and pretty solid. But he also plays 2 knight F3. He plays Kale. He plays Torre. Not all the way h6, but bishop g5. So he's also got his pet lines, but looks like he's playing his main lines tonight against Connor. Makes perfect sense. And Connor kind of doing the same. Connor plays some pretty dubious openings, but just going for a mainline QGD. And okay, yep, we're seeing some Tarka Tower. Dane loves his bishop on g5, just like Torre. So not surprising at all. This is a very well-studied area for Dane. Connor breaking the pin. Still well within Master Theory. Top moves for both players. Okay, let's just continue. Master Theory. I'm not too familiar with this area, so I'm not going to be able to add too much nuance. But okay, Queen C2 here. Nice. And Connor breaks from theory first with A5. Never played in Master Games. So Master Games, they like to continue with Knight B7 here. Sometimes H6, very rarely. So Knight B7, firmly the most played move. A lot of games will go Rook D1 here. Interesting. So really delaying castling a while. Not going to claim to know why. Rook E8, A3. Again, this is how the most common Master games go if Connor didn't deviate with A5. A6. Bishop D3. Black finally takes on C4 now that White finally committed to developing their bishop. So this is a pretty common theme where, you know, both sides are playing chicken with d takes c4. If Black wants to play d takes c4, they're like, I'm never going to play that until you touch this bishop. And White's like, well, I'm never going to touch this bishop until you play d takes c4. So they just have a big battle, and that makes sense that it will last this long until White absolutely has no more improving moves except for bishop d3. And then Black goes, ha, gotcha, and finally takes on c4. Bishop takes c4, b5, bishop a2, and pretty equal. So this is how the super mainline master moves might go in this game. But in the game we had a5, and now we're totally in brand new territory. I'm going to jump over to the Blitz database so we can see what's popular. And okay, so I'm not even sure what the idea behind h5 is, you know, and I'm not too zoned in on d4 openings, but yeah, let's actually okay, let's just continue to the present case in this game because it looks like it's headed towards a pretty placid position, and both sides are thinking we got a nice positional game here, and Dan ended up with a nice little edge out of the opening. Got some nice space. White's still pretty much playing with 3 ranks, although they do have a little bit of central control, but a lot of minors on the board, so Black still has some problems to solve before they can equalize here. But let's actually jump down to Robert against Albert and see what's going on in this game, because Albert, so actually let's set the scene for this game really quickly with round 1. And round 2. Yep, we got Albert against Robert. So Albert 14-19 against Robert, against Arvind, who's well over 2,000 and does extremely well against Masters. So and Albert actually played a kind of crazy Sveshnikov game here and found this killer move, Knight takes e5 here against f6, which is totally killer. So Albert kind of already showing he's really got some underrated skill. But let's jump back to, you know, he might be upsetting not only a expert but also a master, or not a master but a 2150 stronger expert in the same tournament. So I mean, but Robert calculates perfectly, so this is definitely not a given yet. But let's see what Robert played here. So 2f5, yep, he played Latvian. So we're going to have to show this game to Alan in the Serious Chess Improvers Discord that Jacob in the chat and I like to hang out in, because he's a big Latvian Gambit fan, and Robert is busting it out in a 90+30 classical game. So 2150 playing Latvian Gambit in a classical game, you can tell Robert really has no fear. Albert's saying, okay, let's do it. showing he knows a little bit about what's going on with Latvian, playing knight takes d5 without thinking. And let's see how much we got here. So bishop c4. Yeah. Okay, Master's Database, not even useful because no one plays Latvian at master level. But Blitz Database, looks like most popular moves here, c3, bishop c4. So, and bishop c4, top engine move. So, Albert's still well prepared. Okay, jumping in. Yep, he's taking the exchange. I mean, and he's currently +5, still in prep. You know, he's 117. So not totally in prep. He's thinking for himself. But he's actually finding the best moves. Queen h5 still the best move. Castle's best move by the engine. I mean, they're all natural moves. But knight f3, best move. I mean, best move is knight f3 +6. Second best move, e5 +5. Third best move, h3, just chilling, +4.6. So Robert really needs to readjust his strategy because he's honestly just losing game after game, doing these crazy openings. But a lot of times he actually turns them around and wins them or draws them because he has such good calculation skills. So he kind of shows what he really could do if he was playing some serious openings. Okay, Albert has played nothing but top engine moves up to this point. He's at +9.5. He's literally punished the Latvian Gambit as hard as you can possibly punish it. So this is pretty amazing, especially for, yeah, look at his record here. He beat Arvin. Okay, he lost to Thaddeus. Yeah, he lost to Thaddeus, who's basically an open player. So he played in the open section round 1, and then he swapped to Premier, beat an expert. He lost to UV last week, who's a pretty strong expert. And now he's on his way to just totally crushing 2150, but probably not for long if he keeps playing these dubious openings. Roberts, but very happy to have him in the club. Makes things interesting every week. This is absolutely crazy. Knight g6, again, top move. He doesn't even take the queen. Just playing all the best moves. And let's look at what has settled after the dust. You know, White played engine perfect moves as an intermediate, you know, beginner intermediate player against Latvian Gambit. So this kind of shows the tactical skill of up and coming players if you don't take them too seriously, because this is absolutely crazy. Yeah, let's actually look at these players' ratings. Coming into this game, you know, we'll try to get it on the screen properly. It's not working. Okay, I'm just gonna talk. It is Robert is 2137 and Albert is 1420. So Albert 1420 rated against absolutely insane. Yeah, and Robert, actually, my last game with Robert, he totally crushed me. 2137. Wow. So Albert kind of showing, you know, he's an up-and-coming player. He's probably going to be not 1400 rated for long, because this is a total crush where I don't even see how he's going to come back from this. So he's down a full piece plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 versus 7. He's down a piece, 2 pawns, and a full rook. And you can see how much time he's used as well, 1 minute or 10 minutes to get to this position. So crazy. All right, well, let's get to the rest of the games. We basically have a whole game playing out in like the first 10 minutes, so that's something. On board 2, though, as you can see these guys on camera, so these guys are closest to us. Chris is wearing the hat, and Dane is deep in thought with the glasses and the plaid shirt. And we got UV observing Dane's board, kind of pacing around. So D4, knight f6, C4, G6. Okay. So getting into King's Indian. Mainline stuff here. Mainline King's Indian. Okay, looks like Chris plays exchange. Okay, big deviation here, knight d2. So masters like knight, not this knight, but knight d5 or queenside castles here. Typical game might go knight d5, knight takes d5, c takes, c6, trying to break down this center. Let's reinforce that center and let's break it down. Get our bishop to, the nice, whatever Hikaru calls it, and knight d7, wooden shield. This is how masters might play it. Looks like Chris decided to jump knight d2 early. So, totally normal move still. c6, okay, most common. Castles, makes sense. Bit odd. Where's this bishop going to develop? Okay, white's fully developed. Black's still got a bit of problems to solve. Okay, relocating the knight to f8 and coming to e6 soon. Just going to chill with this bishop. Doesn't really care that his rooks aren't connected because it's not a very tactical position. Not too many open lines here. So both players here just deciding to chill out. And we got a nice strategic battle here, just fighting over the d-file, but neither side has a ton to play for here yet. But we still got a ton of game left with 3 minors and 2 rooks on. No mating attack is probably going to happen here, but positional struggle. And I will be right back to, let me pull up, I'm going to leave it on this board. I'll be right back. Alright, let's check out board 3. So we've got Ryan against Eddie. So different pairing. I had all the other players prepared because I know Eddie was paired against UV in the pre-event pairings, but it looks like some things got changed up on site. Someone must have not shown up. So we've got, looks like Eddie going for a Nightorf. Just ready to play tonight. Eddie plays like 15 openings, so he can go for whatever. So he plays main lines, side lines. Ryan, pretty solid E4 player. Plays his main lines for the most part. Kind of has some pet systems and stuff, but definitely not going all over the place like Eddie. So, okay. Looks like we're still in top master theory. Okay, H5. Already pretty uncommon move. I mean, most players playing castles here, so first kind of chance Eddie might have surprised Ryan. But bishop e2, second most played master move. He's not blinking yet. Knight bd7. Eddie knows what he's doing. It's his surprise move. And a4, pretty rare move, but actually played by masters. So masters mostly preferring knight d5 here. At which point masters will both play knight takes and bishop takes, but maybe getting a space advantage with d takes e5. But Ryan now springing a surprise, and this makes perfect sense that Eddie's now tanking because Eddie had made the first surprise, but Ryan made the second. So this is going to totally take Eddie out of book. Eddie was probably prepared against knight d5 or maybe castles. But got an equal position here. Interesting. Still in master theory. We got 90 master games here. So we know this is going to be double-edged. And this should be turning out into a very interesting game. All right, we've got National Master Nathan Hoover against Club Regular UV. Yeah, UV was supposed to play Eddie this week, so, and same thing, Nathan. You know, both these players I think like to prepare, but both players were paired against different players, so I think they're both kind of on their own tonight, but at the same time, they've played each other many times, so they know what to expect. So we got Nathan open with e4. He plays e4 and d4. UV, every game c5 player, almost. Okay, and it's actually a bit surprising. UV a lot of times plays 2g6, playing for Accelerated Dragon, but looks like he's going for interesting, the Classical Sicilian. So I don't know if this is a weapon against Nathan or this is his new main, but maybe he's studying with Jason because Jason Wagner, Club Regular, is a Classical Sicilian aficionado. Got a totally winning position against myself. Almost mated me in Rouser theory, so maybe UV is taking a page from Jason and picking up the Classical Sicilian. I would play Bishop g5 Rouser here myself, which masters overwhelmingly go for. This is kind of the main reason why players don't like to play Classical Sicilian sometimes. I mean, but I actually think Classical Sicilian is an extremely practical weapon because it's pretty uncommon, but pretty good. So it's pretty unlikely White has poured a ton of effort into their anti-Classical Sicilian prep compared to their lines against Najdorf or their lines against Sveshnikov. These are the Sicilians people really pour their theory hours into, you know, maybe Moroxi-Bynes, Rossolimo, and stuff like Classical Sicilian and Taimanov are still very serious Sicilians, but you can't totally sidestep theory, and yeah, so it's a good place to carve a home base. So okay. And okay, actually we're getting towards Dragon transfer, so looks like this actually was just crafty move order by UV to actually get to his dragon. So we're actually in a mainstream dragon now. D6 dragon, so not an accelerated dragon. Nathan jumping in with knight d5, so a bit provocative. I mean, kind of want to just finish your development, castle one way or the other. Either castle queenside and get this going, but interesting. I'm kind of liking UV so far just because I feel like he's kind of move ordered Nathan maybe into thinking this is a classical Sicilian when really he's going for a dragon. I guess, yeah. I guess the reason why UV might not try this against me is because I might play Rouser, right? So maybe he knew, or not here, but here. So maybe he knows Nathan doesn't like Rouser. Because what I'm wondering is if you play Rouser and you play G6, you can't really, yeah, this doesn't work. You're going to pick up D6. So, oh, not here, but, sorry, bishop B5. I feel like I half know this position, but D6 is weak. So I guess this is like a specific, this is probably a little UV knowing what Nathan likes, because I don't think he would play this move order against everyone, because he probably doesn't want to play against Rouser. But I could be wrong there. Okay. And so from what I can tell, yeah, UV has actually gotten a pretty nice version of Dragon. D6 Dragon, that is. Got to differentiate your dragons. You got Hyper Accelerated Dragon, you got D6 Dragons. And it's kind of pick your poison. Hyper Accelerated allows Roxy Bind. So you got to deal with these positional grinders. But D6 Sicilian, which UV played tonight, allows Yugoslav attack, which White's going to try to mate you still in prep, which no one wants to play against that. And yeah, looks like we've got a pretty good version of Dragon. So I would say opening success for UV. He's in his home structure. He's got the bishop pair. He's equalized. The engine says minus 0.1. And probably definitely not what Nathan was hoping for this game. So crafty opening strategy by UV, playing a classical Sicilian, but getting into a dragon transposition. So again, we got Robert against Albert. I don't even think we need to look at this one. I mean, he's up a full rook and a full piece, literally out of the opening. So I feel like Robert's got to have a, heart-to-heart with his game analysis and realize like his new fun strategy is not working out and he needs to take his opponent seriously and stop playing Latvian Gambit, stop playing C4, F4. I mean, I am a bit biased as a principled opening player myself, but it's clearly not working out. And this, he's going to lose probably 30 rating points from this game, so probably not caring too much about his rating, but definitely not serving his calculation skills right by using this type of time management and these type of openings. So Robert, extremely excellent calculator, but making some weird practical decisions. And Norm against Michael. Wow, this game's really blown up quick. So we had a pretty chill position, and okay, lashes out. Engine doesn't like D5, mainly because this diagonal is weak. Bit vague though. And attacking this pawn, I mean, it also likes knight h5. This is vague computer stuff, so okay. but okay, computer hates f6. It likes g4, just developing, and it wants rook c8 here with almost equality, but this is a tough position. I'm not going to claim to totally understand it. I do actually like it for white a lot, mainly because of this d5 space advantage. And so it's making sense why kind of random moves that look here or there are kind of collapsing black's position, because there's still 3 minors on, and white has a massive space advantage right now. Controlling a lot more squares. I mean, black's got some nice control over this square, but none of his pieces can access it. And yeah, so f6, I mean, kind of killing his own bishop, which looks like no longer has good prospects. But it'd be hard for me to play g4 as white, but that's what the engine absolutely loves, is just keeping this clamp, keep this bishop dead. To take is a mistake. I mean, here you're just activating his knight. Okay, so white continues to develop and reinforces the structure, but no real reason here. There's not a threat here. Even if rook c8 comes, your bishop's defending it. So, especially in classical chess, I mean, this is a blitz move. Which norm, it's fine. We're watching a game in the open section just to keep in mind, but no reason to just kind of play these auto moves when you can just continue to develop your pieces. But it's not bad. And Norm actually got a totally dominant position here where black doesn't have any good way to develop his pieces. And his fianchetto bishop is completely dead, staring at a dark square punching. So, but it's also one of those positions that's not going to be clear for white on how to realize that advantage. He has the whole board to play with, but you need to set things up and calculate it out, and that's a lot easier said than done. So we'll see how this plays out. Interesting. Here we got a rook lift. So open section full of rook lifts. That's how Albert beat, and that's also even Premier. That's how Albert beat Arvind. Kind of crazy rook lift. And white's got a pretty nice position here. They've definitely got more central control. Looks like they got great control here. Great control here, here, and black's got a little bit of center here, but white's kind of got 3 of 4 plus. You could kind of consider this pawn pseudo backwards. I mean, maybe you'll play d6, but very active pieces. I can see why white's a lot better here. Pretty unclear what their follow-up plan is going to be. So could definitely see this going both ways, but makes sense why, if you look at the evo bar, white's got a nice edge here. And Daniel against Vincent. E4, okay, Alekhine. Exchange, also what I play. So Daniel following my repertoire. Okay, just playing solid. I'm liking the style, to be honest. Okay, already +1 here. So engine really wanted d5 fully seizing the space advantage, because they can't jump here, because you'll knight takes, bishop takes, And looks like just play bishop e2. Kind of funny. But you're basically saying this piece is terrible. And this is basically the Alekhine knight. It's like the French bishop. You know, bishop c8 is the French bishop. It never has good chances of developing. Well, knight b6 is the Alekhine knight. If you can't get a good knight c4 in, this knight really has no good prospects in Alekhine. And really just every time they try to like redevelop it to the king side or something, if they try to play like knight d7, knight f6, it's way too slow and it clogs up the rest of their pieces. So Alekhine's core issue is space, and Daniel is actually showing how to play against that quite well. I guess the engine is actually dropping back bishop e2, because you want to keep those pieces on. These bishops kind of look monstrous, but I guess they don't make up for this terrible knight. And you're going to be able to actually attack these bishops probably with your pawns. But Daniel playing a3 here, so not fully seasoned advantage with d5, kind of playing safe. Let's also look at d5 knight b4, considering that's what he was worried about. But you can take this bishop now. Queen takes, castles, and let's say they jump in. Well, you've actually got deflecting the queen off the defender, and this is quite the nice transformation for white, because black's, it's not what leaves, it's what remains, and black's left with their terrible knight that has no prospects at all. I mean, I guess he wants to do this, but it's too slow. So that is pretty nice. White can follow up here with queen d2. Let's say black tries that. What's going to happen? Okay, you're just going to fork this pawn, so this is also turning into a huge weakness. So that's something I also haven't quite noticed in this position, because we had this bishop here clogging things up. But black also, after d5, you actually kind of fix a nice weakness here on e7. So this is coming, or this is coming. And this queen is doing nothing. It's offsides almost. You can see it coming with tempos and stuff. You know, you like to think of a queen being nice, attacking here. You can imagine like, oh, what if I get here and here? But that's not how chess works. You count attackers, you count defenders. This is one attacker, and there's no other attackers that we can possibly imagine coming in. Yeah, we can imagine this happening, but we can also imagine a million defenses. I guess not the third, but it's not scary. So black has no attack at all. Okay. So I actually don't mind bishop. Let's see here. Why did he play bishop d3? Okay. Yeah, I don't mind bishop d3. I mean, this piece is active. You love the idea of winning knight for bishop, but not always totally realistic. And you can kind of, especially when your opponent already has a terrible piece, like knight b6, it's really no big deal to trade off one of their nice active pieces. So don't worry about it. Just let's trade these nice. This piece is great, by the way. You know, it's doing a good job. So we definitely want to trade this thing off, or eventually harass it away from its current position. So this makes perfect sense to me. There's no reason not to trade. Let's square bishops. Focus on this. You know, focus on this piece. Queen d7. Queen d7. Totally weird. I mean, he wants to. Okay, makes sense. He wants to. It's not totally weird. He wants to reinforce and recapture with the queen. To take is a mistake, I guess. In this case, though, the engine actually likes it, but that's kind of funny. I would never play bishop takes f5 myself, because not only are you helping black kind of activate a little bit more, maybe clear this square, but I guess maybe the queen's misplaced there. So engine actually likes bishop takes f5. That's kind of funny. anytime you get d5 in, it looks like great against the Alekhine. You're fixing e7, and you're also kind of playing against this weakness, plus you're forcing this knight to develop this way, where now this knight's going to not be able to come back, so you're never going to be able to do this. Okay, so yeah, white playing very prophylactic, trying to stop any ideas of black. I would say it's a bit timid to play this way, but I also play this way myself very often. Okay, engine like d5. Let's take that space. Let's keep this bishop bad. Right? This is just helping black. It's helping him activate. It's helping him activate his bishop. That's what you want to be thinking about in these positions is how do I maximize the activity of my pieces and minimize the activity of my opponent's pieces. And that's your mentality and when of what you want to be playing for in middle games. You know, the stronger players get, the more they care about piece activity. And we can see there's a lot of piece activity factors in the position. This bishop is staring at its own pawn. This knight's bad, right? This knight is pretty bad. Can't jump, and takes is kind of questionable. Although this is quite the threat. But you can see why d5, you know, d5, this is not working, right? This just drops a pawn. Actually grab with the other knight. So yeah, d takes e5, a bit of a step in the wrong direction, but okay. White just playing very risk averse this game, so we've got a totally zeros position, but white actually had some good chances, I would say, and this is definitely not over yet. Yeah, look, they're trying to jump in 96, fork these pieces, but not the best way to pressure the Alekhine. Kind of just went for super safe. Makes sense for classical chess, and we're getting a game. Let's come back to board one. We got the two 2100 plus heavy hitters. Dane about 2130 against Connor 2180. And they're both definitely going to be playing their main openings, kind of trying hard here. Both play a ton of sidelines. Connor more than Dane, but both looking like taking this game seriously. Okay, so bishop d6 here. Interesting. So Connor doing something a bit out the norm here. Maybe playing for e5. This supports this. Engine doesn't love it though, and pretty rare. Yeah, not even a single game in the chess database for blitz played with bishop d6. Which makes sense, moving a piece twice in the opening before you've ever developed your light square bishop. So a bit positionally questionable by Connor for sure, but looks like he's got some ideas he's playing for. Okay, let's see what he wants to do with that bishop. I'm not going to do anything and still pinning your piece since you unself-pinned me. Okay, let's get out of that pin and try to get some activity on this diagonal. And here, Dane actually missed a pretty big opportunity, I guess. Looks like Engine loves c5. So c5, bishop f8, h3. I'm just saying, we have 4 minors on the board. I have a giant space advantage. How are you going to break? e5 is your only idea. I mean, e5 or b6. And yeah, Engine top move is actually b6, but e5 really not working because your queen's got issues. So interesting. Makes a lot of sense when you see it played out by the Engine, but a lot harder to play a committal move like this when you want to maintain tension. And also you've already lined up this battery on the c file. You're kind of making your queen and rook look stupid when you play c5, but just kind of shows the dynamics the position calls for, with 4 minors and black kind of conceding space. But this move actually makes a lot of logical sense because he wants to get some activity for this battery he set up. Okay, also makes sense to recapture with the e-pawn. He's freeing his bishop. He's keeping this c-file closed to this battery. He's opening his rook. It's just totally obvious recapture. C takes would have been significantly worse. Interesting. Okay, knight b5, taking advantage of this pin. Taking advantage of this nice battery he set up. Yep, you're totally right, Adam. Yep, it was met by bishop b3. Yeah, that's what he played in the game. So queen b8, okay, getting out of the pin and losing the bishop. Is super strong bishop, so Connor can't be happy right now. I mean, I doubt when he played queen c7 he saw c takes knight b5 because you're not wanting to give up this bishop. So kind of a nice set of developments for Dane so far. Okay, so knight d2. Yeah, Dane kind of a middle game grinder, but then just likes to go for big attack. And Connor just a super calculator and an endgame player, but also plays kind of dubious openings, but didn't this game. Okay, so I'm not favoring either player yet because I feel like Dane's got a nice advantage, but it's not nearly big enough for it to matter against Connor. And looks like, yeah, he's trying to expand his center and play for more because he knows that he's not going to play for a little minor endgame advantage because Connor's actually probably better at endgames. So f3, interesting decision. Engine like knight takes d4, rook takes, taking the bishop. Let's just hit the queen with tempo. And break here is pretty weird because you're giving this rook a lot of activity when this bishop is totally undeveloped. So this is some engine stuff. I mean, yeah, the rook is still kind of staring at like what's it going to do, but before you play b4, really what's it going to do? You got to develop this knight, develop this bishop before this rook can ever do anything. So b4 is not a human move. All right, but we got an interesting position. This one's definitely going to have some more fireworks. White's got a bishop pair. Better pieces. Better pawn structure. A lot of very slight static advantages for white, but black is excellent calculator, excellent endgame player. So I wouldn't be thinking this is going to sway towards white's favor continuously at all. Just going to be a game. All right, so here we have another camera game, the very close one. So we have Chris against Thomas. Yep, this is a King's Indian exchange. And black's got a bishop here, but still pretty close position. But you can imagine those bishops being useful in the endgame. Okay, this is to me a big Y. Black's got a bishop here. White's goal is to trade dark square bishops, not black. When your opponent has a bishop here and you don't, you have knights, your goal is to eliminate their bishop pair by trading bishops. So now you have knight against bishop. That's much better than the opponent having the bishop pair. So black just for no reason playing bishop c5 and trading off his bishop pair makes no sense to me positionally. And black just being stubborn, saying, okay, I want to play king takes d3 if you take. But look, top engine move is just admitting the mistake, is saying, no, I don't even want to trade that thing. Because why? So yeah, definitely interesting decisions here. Because also, yeah, here, if my opponent played this, I'd be like, thank you. Sure, let's have a positional disagreement about the value of that bishop, and great. So, okay. But getting a nice active king, so getting ready for the end game. And already black has no bishop pair, white has a more active king. Liking white slightly better. Okay, kick him back, but now things are fixed. And white's got a total grip on this d-file. Can't imagine, how can he even get a piece? This is 4 moves away from supporting. You can imagine this, I guess. And white just lashing out with g4 for no great reason. Seems to... Well, let's see what happens here. Okay, he's hoping for some activity with his knight. So that's his reason. Bit of hope chest for en passant. I always play en passant. And then he can get some nice activity for knight e2. That's kind of currently staring at a pawn, staring at a square, staring at another knight, staring at a square his opponent controls. So I can see what he's thinking. I need to activate this knight. But that's not actually how the engine likes to do it. It wants to actually say, let's get this knight out of the way. Which is a bit weird. And now let's go here. I wonder if you could just do that directly too. So, trying to change the pawn structure when he already kind of had a nice pawn structure advantage and total control over the static factors in the position is not totally what I'd say the position calls for. I mean, you're chilling here. It's black that needs to play these type of dynamic moves, not white. But he's trying to get some activity for knight e2, but when you're in a position like this, when you have the static factors in your favor, let's just think about alternate paths to get knight e2 activity, and it looks like knight c1, knight c3 is a good way, maybe even knight a4, knight c3, although you do worried about this knight getting a little off sides. And black's currently tanking against white's kind of weird move g4. En passant isn't actually good because it does help that knight activate, but it looks like this is giving black a hook to attack with and then get his rooks into the game, is what I'm seeing. So engine likes h5, let's say h3, yep, king g7, and let's just play a blah move. Yep, now we got rook h8 and we're getting activity this way. So a bit subtle but interesting factor why g4 is bad is because you're helping h5 and the h-file open and these rooks get activity. Because right now white owns this d-file. These rooks are not going to do anything in this game. But after g4, black's now got the opportunity to play h5, open the h-file, get the king out of the way, and get some activity finally for his rooks on the h-file. And kind of get some counter pressure and have his bishop control this nice square that you're not going to come in and do more damage with your d-file. So, interesting. Nice, we got John in the chat. John, also a commentator on the channel that really appreciate when he comes on and commentates. Another strong expert. Yeah, John, you should see what's happening in Albert against Robert. Oh, already over actually. So we can jump to that. Let's jump to how this game ended. So we'll go beginning to end. Robert played the Latvian Gambit, and Albert just punished it with engine perfect moves. So Albert's showing he's a total tactical talent, or very well prepared against the Latvian. Probably not that well prepared based on his time usage. He was actually thinking. So he's currently plus 10 in this position. When all the dust settles, he's up a full rook and a full piece. And total statement win for Albert, beating a 2137 as a 1400. So Albert probably going to gain, 30 rating points from this game, and Robert lose the same. But let's jump back to Eddie against Ryan. So neither of these players knew they were playing each other tonight. So I know Eddie was paired against UV, and Eddie was getting ready for UV's London or UV's Queen's Gambit. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he beat Arvin, so he's gonna be playing in the Premier section every month now. He's probably gonna be like 2200 before we know it, or maybe he'll be the next Standard Tang. Maybe he'll be GM, and we'll be like, oh man, remember when Albert Yang was 1400, and you'd be like, yeah, just check out the YouTube video because we saw him. So capturing these young talents before they blow up. But here we got a pretty even position between Ryan and Eddie in a Najdorf. So English attack Najdorf, some mainstream stuff. Both sides know their theory pretty well. But both sides tanking, so actually they're not in theory, but they still are kind of in theory, even though they're thinking on their own. There's still 42 master games here, so both players playing a nice Najdorf English attack that you could see being played between 2600 GMs, as we see in the top 5 games here between masters. So nice game by both players, and Ryan already showing, Eddie knows his openings extremely well. It's not like he plays Najdorf every week, so he's not some sort of Najdorf expert, but to get out of the opening against Eddie with this type of eval still in Master Theory, and as a lower rated player, definitely impressed by Ryan here. Yeah. I don't know about space. I mean, they've kind of got equal, and maybe, White's even got a bit of space. Right. So I'd say totally equal. But I'd probably actually take White even. Sounds like John would take Black, so we might have a debate here in the future. John's taking up c5 himself, and I play e4. I don't play English attack, but maybe give it a shot. All right, UV Nathan against UV. We got UV playing his mind game tricks, doing classical Sicilian into his usual dragon that he's well prepared in. And Nathan doing this kind of strange knight d5 jump that probably was definitely not his prep coming into the game tonight. But never know. And yeah, I mean, opening dust is settled here. We got a totally normal bishop pair position. Both players pretty good at endings, but UV in his home turf, right? He loves dragon, plays it all the time. John, of course, going to go for the dragon player as a fresh dragon player himself. So UV, a dragon veteran, and John in the chat is a dragon beginner, but he's about to really show everyone up with the dragon. Migrating away from French, unfortunately for French lovers. So we'll see how this plays out. Kind of blah opening where, neither side did too much. And they're just going to play an ending here. Still got queens on, so I guess how much of an ending is it? But it's already feeling like an ending to me. All right, I'm going to go through the next 3 boards and then take a quick break. Thanks to the viewers. We got a nice viewer count tonight. I see 4 viewers in the chat. Thanks for checking out the stream. John, already getting classy, playing dragon specifically against certain opponents. We'll see if he plays against me or if he sticks to his French. I'm not sure he's going to want a Moroxy bind. We got to see what's going on here, though. Norm pretty much totally outclassing Michael, which is pretty surprising. Michael, I think, actually outrates Norm. Let's check that out quick. So Norm 1600 and Michael 1900. And Michael actually former expert, so in the 1900s now, but definitely a strong player. And so Norm notching up a nice win here, it looks like. He's on his way to just totally dominating this position. Looks like Black kind of went for some crazy stuff here, but it's not working out tactically. So nice upset here too. I mean, assuming White closes this out, we're gonna have 2 big upsets tonight: 1600 against 1900 and 1400 against 2150. Wow. All right, so here we have Thaddeus against Jeremy. We got the big rook lift. Thaddeus still having a pretty nice active position, but Black's still having pretty active pieces for the most part. I mean, this queen needs some work, and they need some center control. So you can see why the engine's really evaluating White better, because White's kind of playing on 5 ranks, and Black's kind of playing on 3. It's not as big of a deal because you only have 2 minors, but it does, for example, make this queen difficult to develop, makes these rooks hard to connect. So White enjoying a little bit of square control advantage, space advantage that is, and although it's not necessarily like a total clamp space advantage because it's not like he's got pawns up all in his business. So just kind of a nice dynamic piece activity edge for White. This H-file is nice. All his pieces are better. The rooks aren't connected. But definitely not totally dominant yet. Makes total sense. Let's get that rook to the open file. And rook g4, best move in the position. Makes perfect sense. Most of these other squares are controlled. And if you go here, you're not really doing much. But here, do we have a threat? Let's see. And we do. Rook takes, takes 6, monster move. Pawn takes. Bishop takes. Pawn takes. Rook takes. I mean, Queen g7 mate coming if you play King h7. So, interesting here. Yeah, you got to find, how difficult is this? Man, you'd have to see this all in advance. Because Queen g7 here, oh, it looks nice, but no, that's not doing anything for you. This is minus 1.6. So this is chess's cruel moment. You'd have to find rook g7. And now after king e8, queen e5 check, you got the checkmate. So, interesting. He's got a threat, but it's definitely not an obvious threat. And not one that I think I would find. Maybe. You sit there and tank enough, you can maybe find that. And, the position's calling for it. But, okay. He's, I guess, feeling the pressure, getting rid of his glory bishop that's on this nice open file, but he doesn't like this attacker. So, I'm not going to say I love that decision, but I also don't hate it. This position is starting to feel rough for black. Everything's in the attack. You got to calculate everything, every move. So this is interesting. White doesn't have a totally clear knockout, but they're already just threatening to take a pawn. Continue the attack, maybe with rook takes h6 and queen g7. So, and here we're even able to just kick the queen off. I guess that's not doing much. So also a bit vague on how white's going to cash in on this, because this actually totally ruins the advantage. Which is tempting. Okay, so Daniel playing against the Alkine, where he kind of played slow to start. Okay. Trading queens here actually it's definitely not a bad move. Engine likes it the most, but you're already starting to fix that knight. And now, they've fixed that terrible knight, and black's totally equalized. White's still got a nice 3-on-2 to play with here, but black's got a massive center, easily compensated. And okay, black just going for a bold f4 here, not totally respecting the square. White drops back. Okay, one move blunder here. Brutal. Got to see that. So, see the time use here. About 4 minutes and got forked. So I'm assuming he didn't see this because, yeah, he's coming in. But this is well defended. Just take either rook. But Vincent did have a brilliant game last week, so this is definitely not representative of his usual play. Check out Game of the Week, posted on the channel from last week, where Vincent actually played a totally brilliant game, but looks like just had a momentary lapse here and hung the fork. Chess is cruel. But let's jump back to board 1 here, where we've got Dane deep in thought in the plaid shirt. Makes sense. It's his move to play. And Connor kind of observing some other boards, but still taking his game very seriously. And Dane just made a move, so Connor's sitting down. Connor with the hoodie up in Eminem lose yourself mode. One shot, one opportunity versus Dane. Will he capture it, or will he let it slip? All right, Dane playing d takes c5, and Connor recapturing with the knight. So decides he doesn't want that central square control. He wants that piece activity, and he wants to not have a weak pawn on a5. So it makes a lot of sense to me. So this is definitely the epic matchup of the night. Both these players gunning for National Master. both 2100 plus, and both win over the other would be some significant rating gain. So definitely a marquee matchup at the club. We don't see it every week. So I'm going to leave it on this game just for a moment, and I'm going to take a 2-minute break. I see we do have a good amount of viewers. I will be right back within just 2 minutes to keep going through the games. I'm going to leave it on board one. All right, let's check out Chris against Thomas. Okay, so nice. Thomas found it. He didn't play en passant, naively activating White's Knight, so just ignored that. Great. When H5 was directly was the best, but he just decided to clear the king to the 7th rank to prepare that. Also makes a lot of sense, and Engine likes it. White's breaking open the H file, so okay, weird. Black's like, okay. So I would say this is some pretty anti-positional play by White, because they basically played the idea Black wants to play on their behalf. I mean, yeah, you're restricting this knight or whatever, but now Black's got activity on the H file. You know, Black was actually needing to play H5 themselves to open the H file and needing to find that idea. Not that they probably wouldn't have, but you know, this is really, and then especially just playing H takes G5. I mean, I guess they're threatening to take, but I I mean, let's just say we just made a nothing move. Okay, they're just going to take. And then trade this off, have an extra pawn, so. Alright, and then to me, yeah, I mean, Rook H8 plays itself. He does have an hour on the clock against 33, so maybe he's evaluating a little bit, but you do got to worry about this pawn. I guess this rook is X-ray defending this pawn, so maybe a bit slighted by the engine, but looks like this is no problem defending. Still was a bit scary when you never want to give up 2 pieces for the rook, so knight d7 wasn't an option until knight d3 happens. You know, maybe one of those Sveshnikov scenarios where, you know, you either have the file or you have the pressure. This is like Sveshnikov playing out 3 ranks back, because the same dynamic happens in Sveshnikov where they get total control over d5, but they can jump knight d5, or they can pressure d6. They can't do both. And it looks like the same situation here. They can pressure e5, or they can pressure the d file, but they can't do both. When they pressure e5, you say, ha, well, you don't have d file control anymore, so let me just defend. So, positional game here, I would say Chris had a nice edge and kind of let black equalize pretty easily with the h file. Okay, we got our English attack Najdorf. Both players thinking for themselves. We're playing master moves up to this point. And this is the first definite deviation, bishop d1. So masters love castle. Makes perfect sense. Gotta follow the opening principles. Castle. I guess he's worried about c2. He wants to play knight d5, and he doesn't want queen takes d2 to hang. But I don't see a huge reason not to include castles before doing that. So white getting a little fancy here. And we'll see if black decides to get counter fancy or just finishes development, which the engine likes the best. That's the problem in chess, is you'd love to be fancy, but unfortunately being boring is actually usually better. So if you can outbore your opponents and you can be the most boring person of all, then, you know, you win a lot of chess games. All right, so we got National Master Nathan, also tournament director. Huge contributor to the club and Thursday nights. Big promoter of the DGT boards that enabled this broadcast. So here we got a total zeros position. Looks like he decided to set up a kind of Maraxi bind type position, but the pieces are all traded already, so it's not that scary for black. And I don't really see what either side's going to play for that much, but maybe one side will lash out. Or maybe UV's extreme experience in dragon positions will shine, or maybe Nathan's endgame acumen will shine. But even time, even position, fairly even pawn structure, even piece dynamics, even king safety. This position is even Steven. Okay, again, Albert took down Robert. Huge upset. Norm closed out against Michael. He decided to resign here. This is where we last left off, but there wasn't a resignation yet. Thaddeus against Jeremy. Got this totally crushing position, but how do you find the knockout blow? Positions like this are kind of annoying. I mean, they're awesome, but also annoying because you're like, okay, I'm winning. I know I'm winning. All my pieces are active. I've got all my heavy pieces pointed at his king. He's one defender. So that's actually how you can tell, right? Like, how do you know this position is so winning for white if we didn't have this eval bar? You just count. You count attackers and you count defenders. We have one defender. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 attackers. It's just so obvious that there's lethal tactics here. You know, this knight can't move or you'll get checkmated, right? This knight can't move in general because it's pinned. It's just this queen and this rook are not really participating in the defense. I mean, especially this rook, but this queen's not participating in the defense in any way. This rook's not participating in the defense in any way. So, especially the rooks are a huge difference where white just has a bonus 10 points of material in the sector of the board that matters. And that's actually a big thing in chess. Like, it doesn't matter the material count on the total board. It matters the material count in the sector that matters, especially in attacking position. But the knockout blows are not straightforward. I don't see any straightforward knockout blows, and neither does the engine, because it's playing moves like knight g, h4, f4. Okay, f4 makes sense. Just kind of let's play f4, f5, and try to mate him. But I mean, here you want to calculate every attacking move, right? So Thaddeus, who actually last week was a victim of a brilliant game by Vincent, this week looks to be playing quite the brilliant game himself against Jeremy, another club regular, plays every single month. Very much appreciate, by the way, the players that play every single month. Thursday Nighter is a great event for the club, and we need a nice turnout for all our events to make sure the club stays in good standing. So very much appreciate all the regulars, and also very happy to see some of the open section boards ending up on DGT here. So welcome, Evan. Thanks for tuning in again this week. So here, yep, Vincent just hung the pretty much equal position here, and he just hung a fork in one move. So momentary lapse, white's taking advantage. And Vincent still looks like he's coming to terms with his new position. White's totally winning here. And Daniel, really strong player. I wouldn't be surprised to see him swap over to the Premier section before too long. Especially if he starts having or he keeps having these nice results in the open section. He's usually placing towards the top of the section. All right, we got a totally even game between Connor and Dane here, engine-wise, but it's not even on the board. This pawn is a controversial guy, although it looks pretty nice. I mean, he's got some nice square control, but it is isolated and on its own a little bit vulnerable. White's got this nice bishop pair, but black's pieces are all great. This bishop's great. This knight's amazing. This pawn's pretty nice because you can't kick the knight anymore. Rooks are great. So both players just playing pretty excellent game here. I bet you if you threw this into chess.com, they'd both be getting, 95 plus accuracy. So definitely a good game for board one. But also can kind of see the approach a lot of players take in this club. No one's really trying to kill each other out of the opening too often. I try myself, but not successfully. But most players just kind of going for, they're playing classical chess. They're here all night. They don't want to blunder in the opening. So it doesn't make too much sense to play the hyper critical stuff, even though you do have time to calculate some of it, so you can do it. But see some more positional approaches for sure when you get to 90 plus 30 classical rated chess, because you got to sit there and suffer with your position for the next couple hours. So not quite as easy to make those gambit moves as it is in blitz chess, unless of course you're Robert Donahue, and then you just you don't care. You don't care if your rating is 2137. You don't care if you're playing a 14. Yeah, you're playing a 1400. I get it. I mean, he didn't think he was gonna get outclassed with top engine moves against a 1400. He thought he was gonna get some nice activity and a nice counterattack, but yeah. So there is a big mix of personalities in the club, but I'd say most of them a little bit more conservative. All right. So and again, we can see in this game, pretty conservative from both sides. Got an interesting game, playing with some nice dynamics. Both players trying to take their stakes. White taking some space on the queen side. Black, pretending to take some space on the king side, maybe threatening a rook lift if it wouldn't get taken. But, they didn't go for like super topical Najdorf plans that are continuing out of the opening into the middle game. They just got their setup, and then they kind of played some risk-averse moves. Yeah, what happened to Robert? Oh yeah, we can show that again quick. Got a question in the chat. Yeah, Evan. So he played. Again, Albert is 14, a little over 1400, but upset an expert earlier in the tournament, clearly underrated. Robert playing Latvian Gambit, the ultimate contempt opening, plus 1.5, move 2, and Albert just went ahead and punished Latvian Gambit. So honestly, happy to see it, because I would never be happy to see Latvian Gambit win. From my perspective, it's fun a bit, but you especially think about a competitive game. A white player who loses to Latvian is going to be totally embarrassed. So I wouldn't want to totally embarrass my opponents myself, but chess is chess, and clearly it backfires a lot as well. But definitely don't think Latvian is a strong contender for 90 plus 30 player. So happy to see it lose. All right. Wow. Okay, big development in Dane's game. We got blunder here by Connor. Queen c6 is a blunder. Engine goes from 0.3 to plus 1.1. Let's see why. So it looks like engine's loving rook d1, piling pressure on this pawn. So rook d1. What does black even do? Well, let's just say he makes a nothing move. Now you're trying to kick the rook off the file. If you play something like f6, this is really killing the light squares. Yeah, he's going to come in like this then. So, gotta kind of, you're running out of squares a little bit. Bishop f5, running out of squares. That's an interesting concept. So it's not even totally about the d pawn. So the whole point is you start by pressuring the d pawn, but you really want to remaneuver these bishops to sweet open diagonals here. And if you can do that with tempo, amazing. If you just want bishop, I mean, I guess if you can do it here too, no problem. You can do the same plan. So I don't know what the difference is between doing rook d1 first. But yeah, I mean, you can see in this position what the engine likes and why it likes it. Piece activity. Piece activity is the name of the game as you get stronger. And speaking the language of piece activity, both suppressing your opponents and maximizing your own, is how you win games against strong players. So we can see why the engine here just loves increase this piece's activity. Let's increase this piece's activity, although it's already very active here. Let's increase this piece's activity. And that's actually kind of why Queen c6 is so bad, is because it allows bishop f5. So you're no longer controlling this key square, you're allowing, you maybe have this, but that's actually, I'm being totally slighted by the engine because black's thinking about their king safety, right? They're thinking about this type of stuff, but the knight controls that type of stuff really well. So the king's actually not in much danger because the knight controls this diagonal so well. But what you are in danger of is, I guess, these bishops just becoming brother bishop lasers down this position. Oh, that's not how it works. So, not going to claim I would find that super classy plan, but okay. And he plays bishop e5, and actually that's not what Dane's going to play for either. Dane's like boom, boom, king. And still good. His position's looking great. I mean, he still's got brother bishops on this diagonal. Oh, and Connor just jumps in here. Crazy. Because bishop takes g7 is winning for white now. Bishop takes g7, just tearing apart this king. What are you thinking, Connor? What is bishop c5? I mean, bishop c4. I mean, Connor is a calculator. He calculates every single move. He doesn't play off intuition. So he must have a plan for bishop takes g7. His plan's probably knight e6, thinking this is impossible. But queen slides up, defends the bishop. Okay, take. Ooh, okay. My tactical vision showing. So I think this is just a straight blunder by Connor. He's thinking bishop takes g7 is impossible because of knight e6, but queen f6 pins that knight. And you can't take the bishop because I'm going to take your queen. Not only the pawn, he dropped his whole king safety. I mean, this is not just a pawn. This is the pawn. I mean, you got boom, boom. This is all coming in, right? You cannot afford to lose your g7 pawn. And so Connor knows that. Like he's not thinking bishop takes g7 is possible, but it's not even just the pawn. It's just bam, bam, and this is queen f6. The moves you miss because you're not seeing knight takes g7. You're assuming I can play knight takes here, but your queen's way off place here, and it just makes no sense even because you put your queen in the rook's vision. So Connor is playing anti-positional, kind of on the edge move, and it unfortunately does have a critical tactical punishment of bishop takes g7 with queen f6 follow-up to the knight e6 defense that Connor's probably relying on. Wow. So this is the marquee game. Let's leave it here, and we've also got it on camera. Dane. So Dane is in the plaid, the glasses in the background. He's currently deep in thought. Connor's away from the board, and Dane is trying to find the best move in the position, which is bishop takes g7. So this is the type of position you get in as a classical chess player, and you know you're winning, or you know there's something wrong with Black's decision making here. I gotta have something, right? All right, I see he played a move on the board, but I don't see it on the DG yet. Is bishop h7 check stoppable without losing Black's queen after queen f6? So let's see here. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I mean, that's a nice threat. So yeah, the top moves here are all, the top three lines are all +3, or I mean +6 or +7. So I don't think there's anything at all here. So I thought I saw Dane make a move on the board, but yeah. Yep, he played bishop takes g7. He found it. Okay, so let's take a look. Connor is grappling. He wasn't expecting bishop takes g7 because he thought knight e6 was his saving grace. So we see Connor on the left grappling with his now lost position, recalculating and realizing that knight e6 is losing to queen f6. Connor for sure going to see that. And Dane's sitting back, sipping on his water, just chilling, waiting to see what Connor does. Oh, Dane's stepping away, letting Connor ponder. What are you going to do against bishop takes g7, bro? So So again, yeah, these are the two kind of marquee players of tonight. They're both on 2.5 out of 3, playing on board 1. Both are 2100 plus, and neither have made 2200 yet. So both are in the hunt for Masters. So this is kind of a nice matchup. Connor definitely had stronger results overall in the club lately, but Dane no one to mess with, as we're seeing tonight. So yep, Connor deep in thought, trying to save his position, hands on his face now. Just as cruel, but he's used to winning, so you can't feel too bad for Connor. He wins a lot. All right, I'm going to leave it right here just for a moment and take a 1 minute break here. I'm going to leave it on board 1 because I want to see how this all plays out with Connor's reaction to bishop takes g7. All right, well, Connor's still pondering here. If he does make a move, we'll come back to it, but let's take a look at the next board. So here we got the d-file dominance that turned into some h-file counterplay, and now a pretty equal position. White decided to trade off a pair of rooks, and this looks like a pretty big blunder by black. So not capitalized by white. So white attacking here makes perfect sense. Attacking the pawn with check, but okay, totally vague to me actually why this is so bad, because computer loves rook a8, but it doesn't love knight h3, rook a8. So knight h3, king e7, rook a8. Now you have bg4. Rook takes g4, crazy. Yep, and you're going to win the knight here. And otherwise, I guess... this knight. Crazy. Who would ever find that? Come on. This is totally crazy tactics. So knight h3 is actually kind of bad because it's vulnerable to bishop takes g4, pawn takes, rook takes check, and then rook g3 supported by f4 pawn, forking these two knights, which are so far apart from each other they can't protect each other. That's about, like, the most computer tactic I've seen in a while, but probably still findable if you're good. Like I'm literally playing the variation out, following the engine, and not seeing that this knight's hanging. So if you can actually see this knight as a tactical target in the starting position, you can maybe find bishop takes g4. Pretty crazy. Okay, but he played knight h3, king f6, defending this pawn. Makes perfect sense. And now if we go for the engine move, yeah, now we have bishop takes g4. Same motif. And you can kind of see actually this knight is really bad. It's staring at this pawn, its own pawn. I can kind of come back, but then even if it comes back, it's staring at this pawn. Like this knight's kind of a piece of crap. Like how do you even activate this thing? Not only does it not do anything, it's a tactical target for rook g3. Oh, Connor did make a move. He played queen e6. So not going for the knight fork and the queen f6 brutal position, realizing his mistake, and just giving up the pawn, pulling the queen back. It looks like Dane's best move here is bishop h8, threatening checkmate. And white's, if white plays king f8, because now this would be pretty nice for black. The king would run. This is -2 actually for black, so definitely not trivial for Dane to close this out. He needs to find very accurate moves, but he's on his way. But if you play king f8, you can play either bishop f6, relocking, but seems a bit redundant. And you know engines love to repeat. But saying queen f4, okay, threatening this. Not easy. So let's see, is anything findable here though? The engine top moves are bishop f6 and queen f4. So not totally straightforward variation to find at all, considering I don't even understand it with an engine on. But let's look at what else we have besides bishop h8. We got bishop f6, tempo on this knight, or on this rook. So Connor must not really have been relying on knight e6. He must have been kind of thinking about that. I don't know. He kind of tanked though, and he looks nervous. And Dan looks chill, so he must have missed it. But let's say here, and now bishop h8 or bishop h4. They're all vague. None of it is like check, checks, captures, threats, right? It's all like, let me slowly maneuver my pieces into a position where you can't do anything. But at the same time, like, you don't need to go crazy because this king is so bad at this point. These bishops are so good. This queen's so good. This bishop's so good. Like, it's almost like inevitable, even though at the same time it's on the edge because a lot of these positions turn around quick. So let's see, is there a material issue here? We've got a bishop here against 5 pawns and we're plus whatever, so I don't really see how this turns to -2.3 so quick. Because isn't black still up material here? Or I mean, isn't white still up material here? I guess they're about to win this bishop. So that also kind of goes to show why bishop h8 is so risky. because the bishop can actually self-trap itself if the king escapes. That's an interesting note for your own games. You can't just calculate bishop h8, queen g7, king e7, and be like, oh, the king is loose. I'll get it. Because now bishop h8 is trapped. I'm going to get picked up by this rook. So, interesting game. Queen e6, Dean's top three. Bishop h8 plus 3.7, bishop f6 plus 2.7, f4 plus 1.9. So he's got like 3 classy positional moves that are all totally winning, but none of them are like checks, captures, threats, puzzle rush, anything like that. So could definitely see this game still turn out to be spicy, even though Connor is totally on the ropes. Here we got the bishop takes g4 mayhem game earlier, and now we see white has actually solved their knight a little bit. I mean, quote unquote solved, right? Looks like his plan is here. Finally get some pressure here. So we can see how this kind of goes too. Now it's just total zeros. Like if you want to win chess games, you need to identify your opponent's defects in their positions and exploit them right away. You can't just chill and let your opponent fix their pieces and then hope to beat them later. You know, earlier white had this bad piece on c3. You got to be focused on that piece, and clearly I wasn't either as a commentator or a player if I was in this game. But if you want to win this game, you gotta find moves like bishop takes g4. It doesn't work in this position, but it works sometimes, right? Yeah, he played king h here. Yeah, he could have played king e7, rook a8, and then bishop takes g4, right? And that's not even totally winning. It's just kind of turning the tide in black's favor, but that's how super strong players take all these games over. They see that knight is weak. Okay, I could fork these pieces. Even though there's not that many pieces left on the board and it's kind of headed towards a draw, what defects does my opponent have? Oh, this terrible knight. Let me try to exploit that. But now we're definitely headed towards placid territory, because you attack this, he just defends it. This rook's even a bit offsides. I mean, you can imagine this rook getting pseudo-trapped by the king or something, but pretty unrealistic. These knights aren't even trying to do anything. I mean, yeah, I guess maybe you could jump here, but it's already well controlled. It's well controlled. Also, definite note with both these players is I would say neither one is draw-averse. I would say both players offer and accept draws often. So I would say this game is very likely to be drawn. All right, let's take a look at what's happened in Ryan against Eddie in the Najdorf English attack. So these guys are really tanking hard in the opening. We're only on move 15. So it looks like Eddie, perpetual time trouble addict, already at 27 minutes on move 13. Also, I'm not going to be, overcritical here, but, what are you thinking about for 123 down to 57 on rook c8? Like, there's literally nothing to calculate here. You should save your time for calculation in general. you know, and that's not like a universal rule. Like, yeah, you have to sometimes come up with plans and stuff like that, but I'm sure Eddie would much rather have this, what, 23:57, so 23 plus 3, yeah. I'm sure Eddie would much rather have this 26 minutes in a critical position later in the game when he actually needs to calculate than deciding on castles versus rook c8. Like, so, yeah, to me, Eddie's time management problem is a bit self-inflicted because this is totally crazy. But we can see it playing out because, yeah, now he's down. Now he's down to 15 minutes, and the game's still just in the opening phase, and he's going to be playing. And look, Ryan kind of did the same thing. Let's look at what Ryan did with his time. You know, okay, spent 15 minutes on a4. I mean, you can pretty much just castle in either direction. I mean, a4 is fine and nice, but definitely not critical or anything. Not like you're preventing b5 that get bishop b7. That's super critical. Like, the pieces are already all developed. And then, okay, spends 6 minutes on a5. Okay, fine. Kind of spend 6 minutes on bishop d1 when you could just auto castle or something like that. You know, it goes to show in classical, you know, these guys are trying to get really fancy. They're trying to get these big plans. Just get your basics done and save your time to calculate. Okay. And here, okay, so knight takes d5. So, yeah, I guess you really can't fault Ryan's time usage in this game at all because it looks like he spent his first big chunk of time on knight takes d5, which clearly he was calculating a lot. This is a moment for calculation. And now here's where we're at, 14 minutes against 24. Now Eddie's clearly got to counter calculate, right? And he had to calculate a lot to play d5. But I bet you wish you had that time back from when you really tanked on rook c8 to actually calculate in this position. Because now he's going to end up playing on increment in the ending, even if he ends up winning the middle game complications. So yeah, again, buddies with Eddie, so not trying to be overcritical, but probably check out how much time you're spending on planning decisions and save that time for calculation. So let's check out Nathan against UV. Okay, UV tricked him with the move order, got into his normal dragon, through a classical Sicilian. And these guys are playing, okay, both using a lot of time thinking about this kind of super dry position. Looks like black had a chance here to trade bishops and take this pawn. So looks like UV a bit scared of taking this pawn. Also, if you take the pawn directly, e5, crazy. Okay, I mean, he's worried about his queen getting trapped. You've got rook takes c4 counterattack. Crazy. So exchange stack. Exchange stack to free the queen. You're down a full exchange here, but this is apparently equal. Okay. Stupid engine things. So makes perfect sense. UV didn't play queen takes a2. He actually didn't see that, you can just, even though your queen gets trapped, don't worry about it. Just play rook takes c4 and, sack the exchange, and you'll have more than enough compensation with your extra pawns and bishop. It's good, man. Like, grab that pawn. Obvi. So, UV playing a human move. And we have a totally even position. If he trades queens here, this is going to be totally awesome for black because they're going to get overbearing pressure on this diagonal, or I mean on this file, without white really being able to deal with it. Because this rook is also needs to defend this pawn. So a usual example of to take is a mistake. Every time you make a capture, your opponent gets to recapture, and when they recapture, the position transforms. And if that position transformed in a way that's favorable for your opponent, that capture was a mistake. So, for the most part, unless that piece was so important, like some sort of critical bishop, and you're getting the bishop pair, and you're going to play for an ending. But here, queen takes queen, pawn takes queen is a free tempo for black because they have to recapture, right? Oh, I just got to recapture. You spent your move on queen takes queen. They spent their move on recapturing. And so black didn't actually spend any time at all. They didn't actually spend any of their choices on 8 takes b5, but they already got this rook attacking this pawn for free. So in the same way, if a piece recaptured this, if a knight recaptured this, the knight would get to advance its position for free because it's recapturing, but it's moving from this less active square to this more active square. So that's the kind of the core reason why there's this principle to take is a mistake. And in your own games, you want to kind of be wary about taking pieces unless you see taking the piece leads to winning some material or getting a way better position. Otherwise, just kind of maintain the tension, let your opponents make the captures. You'll move your pieces forward, and things will work out for you. Okay. So we've got Thaddeus against Jeremy. And here, yeah, he's got the totally overwhelming position with way more active pieces, especially these rooks. Compare these rooks. Black's rooks are terrible. White's rooks are amazing. And just building his position up nicely, okay? And black kind of struggling to find anything to do. I mean, connect your rooks, develop this rook before he's playing f5. I don't know what f5 is about, but I mean, he's worried about this knight clearly, but I don't really see how he's winning the knight. I mean, let's just make a blah move. Yeah, he doesn't have any type of bishop takes g6 winning tactic or rook takes h6. The engine mess moves here are g4, f4, king b1. How brutal would that be to play by this? King b1. Oh, what are you going to do? These are the positions I like to play as white, where you literally cannot go wrong once you get into a dominated enough position. Okay, but black basically got perplexed with his terrible position and just played f5 for reasons I don't totally understand. I'm sure he's playing the classical game, so he's got reasons, but they aren't working because this diagonal is still a huge problem. This knight's still remains to be a huge problem, and this isn't solving anything. Like, what's he going to do to finish this here? I mean, engine likes rook d1 and f4. F4, weird. I don't see a huge problem with this besides what? Maybe this is an issue? I don't even hear just cold-blooded, like, weird pin dynamics. I'm sure you can just retreat the bishop. Everything here is just totally dominating. This seems like the human way to win to me. Let's bring the rook in. Still +4. Engine doesn't like as much as some of the alternatives, but okay, but we got the lash out, and white just maximizing their position, attacking the rook. Definitely like it. And now you can do all sorts of things. I mean, this is a little suppressed, so maybe you can think about, now this pawn's backwards, and it's probably not coming forward because you got a lot of control over the square, so I definitely like rook d1. I also like just bringing the queen to the open file in some way. Let's stay connected on the diagonal, but let's get to the open file and start to pressure this, start to threaten this. I love sinking a queen in here because it's 4 squares away from the knight. Love to be a corner away from knights. It takes them four moves to get to you, so you know queens really like to be 4 squares away from the knight, so that's what I like. Plus you're solidifying that weakness. You're never going to get that forward, plus you can stack up on it. So Thaddeus, nice game. I'm pretty impressed by his positional play here, and fully activating his pieces and not going crazy, but just getting a dominating position through piece activity. Okay, Daniel against Vincent. Wow, this is really taking a bit of a turn, because we had Daniel totally winning here. Up a clean exchange. Okay, goes through these dynamics. Turns out a bit naive to give black all this activity, or to trade this many pawns. But still seems like a clean exchange. But now engines are still in zeros. At the same time, an exchange is an exchange. I mean, and I don't think Vincent is a GM endgame defender here. So I'd still say white has some good chances. The way you generally win a exchange up ending is eventually you're gonna need to trade your rook for the bishop, but you just want to make sure when you trade the rook for the bishop, the resulting pawn endgame is winning for white. And so from that perspective, you definitely want rook against bishop more than you want 2 rooks against rook and bishop. So I would say, white's kind of blown it a bit here according to the engine, but they still have some winning chances. And I would say the first prospect towards winning would be try to trade the rooks if you can. Also make sure that this stuff doesn't come, but I guess you would pick this up. So, but now it's on full-on endgame territory, and apparently Big mistake here was allowing this activity. He could have played c5. But I mean, I would say even this is kind of a sus decision to play f3 here. Like, this is not how you convert positions. You're up a clean exchange for nothing, and you're getting into tactical dynamics via your own volition. You could easily play a move like bishop e1 here, and now you're not quite a corner away from this knight, but you're the next best. You're three squares away, and you're dominating this knight because this knight jumps here, 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 here. The bishop covers all those squares, and it actually takes the knight 3 moves to get this far away. It also takes him 3 moves to get this far away, the plus. And so the knight is really good at attacking like a corner away from itself and like these squares away from itself, right? Like these are kind of the danger zone for this knight, where it's really going to get some nice activity. It can jump here and attack here. It can jump here and attack here. It can jump here and attack here, right? Attacks these squares in one move. The plus is pretty far away. The 3 squares away is pretty far away, and the golden standard is a corner away, is 4 moves away. So but yeah, like this, you're up a clean exchange. Why are you getting into like, you attack my piece, I attack your piece? Like, you're just asking for it when you get into stuff like that. You know, just play a normal move, and dampen your opponent's counterplay, and then eventually trade pieces and win with your extra material. Okay, but he's going crazy here, and yeah, white's. I would not be shocked at all if white wins this game. But according to the engine, actually black is better in this position. How sad is that? Minus 0.3. So interesting game. And I would say well played by Daniel, but up until that decision in the conversion, with the f3 reaction, which he's still got a good position, a good chance to win here. So not too much criticism. Wow, okay. Dan totally converting this into a nice winning position. So let's see what happened here. So you play bishop f6, attacking the rook. Very human move. Actually has a threat. You need to deal with it. Restricts black's options. So his options are move my rook. So it makes sense why Dan decided to play for that, and was the second best move in the position, and no risks of getting bishop h8 trapped. So love bishop f6. Makes sense. He's defending his attacked rook, and Dan just chilling, saying, okay, now let me get this bishop out of the way, since it's attacked, and I'm going to exploit your terrible king safety. Connor really worried about queen g4, looks like. So let's just say, not that move, but I want to make a nothing move. Let's say we played b5. Also, that hangs a piece. So let's say, okay, black's position is so bad it's hard to find a do nothing move. How sad is that? Let's say they play h5. I guess that's controlling queen g4. So let's play rook f8, right? So I don't know. Queen g4. Still, queen controls it. So I don't really know why Connor was so obsessed with f5 here, but kind of lashing out, looking for a bit more central square control, but kind of compromising the king safety even further. Not only do you have this pawn gone, but now this one, the whole 7th rank is open, if the rook ever could come in. Okay, Dame plays e4, best move in the position, critical. Let's blow things up. Your king's totally wide open, and looks like he thinks all these variations work for him, which they do. Yeah, because here I'm just taking your bishop. Here, yeah, I'm just undermining this pawn and exploiting that your bishop's overextended here. You got a lot of pressure on it. Even though you got a X-ray defender, doesn't matter. I have 2 attackers. Plus this rook's ready to swing into the attack. This rook c3 is so nice. Doing so many good jobs. So this is what happens when you get brilliant pieces. Let's see, when did Dane actually get rook c3 in place here? So Dane actually lifted this rook way earlier in the game to defend the pawn here. Put the bishop behind it, and now this rook is just paying huge dividends for him. So it's kind of lucky, honestly. Like, he played this move to defend a weakness as a kind of forced move a lot earlier in the position, and now it's just turning into a total monster later in the game. So top 3 lines here all +8. It feels like a blind man could stumble into a win in this position. So I'd be totally shocked to see anything besides a win for Dane here. And we can see how, we can actually see in the body language on camera, Dane's just confident and Connor is flustered. But this is a pretty unusual scenario because Connor is usually beating up the club, and I'm not sure his head-to-head record with Dane, but I know they both have a few wins. Okay, board 2 is still on camera here. We see Chris Kalina on the right, deep in thoughts with the white pieces on the very closest board. Knight G1, and Chris actually has a nice advantage here, so it looks like he picked up the B7 pawn. So I was thinking this was headed towards a draw, but looks like he played A6 unsolicited, even without rook A8. And now here apparently rook A8 was White's best move. With this idea, far away from the knight to pick up the pawn. Super strange. Yeah, I mean, if you can find rook A8, rook A7 in your own game, you probably study a lot of rooking games or something, because that's pretty weird. Okay, but Chris playing a normal move, and okay, looks like king F7 to blunder here because of rook C8, which is the best move in the position Chris found. Pretty shocking. Yeah, I guess you can't hit the pawn, so it makes sense. But still, you're walking into discovery. It's kind of cold-blooded to find that move. Nice calculation. Looks like just trying to get in. And he did so successfully. Now he's up a clean pawn. And playing for more. This is looking very good for Chris. Although, okay. Now Thomas getting some activity. We got a game on our hands. This pawn controlling a lot. So let's look at the time. 28 minutes for Thomas, 16 minutes for Chris. Thomas also been a pretty dominant force in the club lately. He's looks like he had a loss this month, but he's actually had a couple tournament wins. Usually been playing on board 1. Thomas is a national master himself. We have a couple of national masters in the tournament tonight, Thomas and Nathan. And then board 1 we have some, I think Dane and Connor will both make national master sooner or later. So speaking of that, let's jump to Nathan's game against UV. Unfortunately, I haven't had too much coverage of this game. I know Nathan watches the stream afterwards. Very much appreciate that. Haven't had too much coverage of his game here because we kind of got a boring zeros game. I know this is not what Nathan was hoping for, but UV got him with some nice move ordering and got into a nice comfortable position and just turned out equal. But to that note, if you're one of the players playing tonight and you're watching this stream, please leave a comment. I'd say you guys are the main audience I'm making the videos for. Very much appreciate the live audience we have here with us tonight, but definitely hoping the players themselves watch the replay, check out the games check out the commentary on their own games, and check out some of the games played by the other players on other boards that they couldn't quite watch too closely because they're engrossed in their own game. But this is a community channel. We want to get as many community members on commentating as possible. We want to get as many community games as possible, and also get as many community viewers, players that actually play in the club, watching the YouTube channel as possible. So thank you so much for everyone's support. And yeah, on that note, I probably should actually plug our sponsor. We'll plug that for a second. chessgoals.com. So we have National Master Matt Jensen, who comes on the channel and commentates now and then, and he owns a nice company called chessgoals.com. Simple chess courses for non-grand masters. Learn complete repertoires in under 100 lines. So these are kind of club repertoires, very well catered to moves that'll actually appear on the board in your own games based on lead chess stats and Matt's experience in club tournament play. So nice courses catered by Matt Jensen, and he also has a private Discord. I bought one of the courses, the Catalan course, and I see him in the private Discord answering everyone's questions on all his courses all the time. So check those out. chessgoals.com. If you do decide to purchase any of the courses, please use the code CASTLE, save 30% on your purchase. And yeah, check it out. And then also check out commentary by Matt Jensen when he gets on the channel. So we'll get the players deep in thought back up instead of our discount code. And yeah, so this position, totally boring, nothing going on. Probably going to be a draw. If one player goes crazy, maybe we'll get an in-game battle, but they're both getting low on time as well. Dane's got mate in 4 here, so total conversion phase. Okay. Yep, Connor. Yep, we can see them both playing out moves. Let's watch this play out. Looks like we got a conclusion here. Connor plays out till mates. He will let Dane mate him. Connor, very good sport, and a huge asset to the club. He's also a supporter of the channel. Does a lot of commentary himself. So this was quite the epic game between two club titans. Dane making a name for himself as potential contender for Club King again when Connor was really dominating everyone for a while. So, but a direct win against Connor himself is a big namesake for Dane. So I would say, yeah, these are the two players we're really watching right now. You know, besides Albert Yang upsetting everyone. But you know, they're on the hunt for master. They're both 2100 plus. Both playing very strong chess against almost everyone in the club. So very nice to see a matchup between them. Looks like, you know, a momentary lapse. Queen c6 gave Dane a nice chance to pounce with bishop takes g7, and the potential refutation, knight e6, didn't work. So Connor just got a totally lost position from there, and Dane actually just closed it out, exploiting that weak king safety perfectly with a nice repositioning and then mating attack, not going crazy after he already had his winning position. So I would say, yeah, total masterclass by Dane. And Connor didn't play bad at all. Played mainline openings, played a lot of moves that made sense, and just, yeah, back here we got total equal position. Dane's got some problems of his own, and queen c6 here just allowed the beginning of the end. Bishop c4 was second big problem, which we saw, yeah, in the future. E4 came with huge effect because this bishop is a little bit loose here. So yeah, yep, e4 right here. Nice move by Dane. So Dane found extremely good critical moves in the critical positions, and that's what you got to do to beat a guy like Connor. So great game by Dane. Bit of a pity for Connor on the verge of master, but looks like Dane's going to take some of those points from Connor and get towards master himself. It'll be interesting to see. Maybe we'll have a race for national master among the Thursday Nighter Titans between Connor and Dane going on. So Connor had a 12-0 streak at some point, and Dane won 2 recent national tournaments, won over $10,000 in prizes. So we've got some pretty good players in the club. All right, and Chris taking over this position. So Thomas going for that counter rook activity, going for that rook d2 check and rook takes a2, but it looks like rook takes c6 is really going to be brutal. I mean, you've also got piece issues, plus the knight still attacks here. These passers are going to roll. Like, Chris has got this in the bag. So he's got 60 minutes on the clock, though. He's still thinking. So Chris is on camera. Okay, Chris played a move. Looks like he decided to take a6. Yep, makes perfect sense. He's got his rolling passers now. Oh, sorry. No, that was... Okay, let me flip out and back. What actually happened in the game? Okay, rook takes a2. Rook takes c6. Okay, no. So he just played rook takes c6. Okay, I don't think the full feed is through on the game yet, because we see some moves playing out on the camera. Okay, he just played rook takes c6. Okay, knight f8. Yep, okay, now he took a6. So, playing the best line. On his way to victory. Yeah, especially, yeah, they're totally tired. Yeah, and Thomas actually played an awesome game all night, and that probably is a way to... You can see, yeah, Thomas is a bit older. So it probably is a good way to target Thomas if you're really looking for a win. Get the game going really late and complicated, and, hope he makes a mistake being a bit tired. But Thomas clearly showing he's one of the strongest players in the club overall, and just kind of having a bit of a lapse here, letting this position fall apart in the end game. But also Chris taking advantage of his chances, and very impressive play by Chris, especially finding, rook c8, rook c7 to collect this pawn. Not obvious at all. That's not like blitz moves. It's classical chess moves that he calculated. Okay, we got Eddie. Yeah, okay, Eddie actually has a winning position here, minus 1.3, but he only has a minute 30 on his clock. So again, coming back to that rook c8 point earlier, wishing he didn't spend all that time on that move. And these players aren't even on move 20, and they're both in extreme time pressure. And so I would say they're definitely taking signals from each other on how they should be using their time, because you should budget your games based on 40 moves. So you should be able to make 40 moves within your clock's time, and you shouldn't really care about what your opponent's clock is for the most part. So I would say both players had some pretty serious time use issues in this game. Like, you should not be on move 20 and be in this type of time pressure, but is what it is. Looks like, okay, he played his bishop d1. Yeah, especially when you're doing plan decisions like they did, they tanked on planning decisions, not calculation decisions for the most part, although Ryan did calculate first, start tanking on calculation. So I would say Ryan is a little bit less to criticize on the time usage than Eddie, but I guess it did work out for him because he did end up in a nice position for him. But good luck converting your minus 1.4 position with 1:30 on the clock. But he is known for this. I would definitely put my money on Eddie in this position, both known for playing on increment like he does in all of his games, plus the engine eval is totally favoring him at this point. It looks like, let's count material. 6 pawns versus 6, equal pieces. So it looks like just this king activity and this weak pawn on, this is turning into more of a weakness than a strength, is the big reason why Eddie is so good in this position. It looks like he's going to pick this pawn up and be a clean pawn up, and let's see if he can convert this. But yeah, it would definitely be a lot easier to convert this with 20 minutes on your clock right now. All right. Nathan against UV, we got the totally dead Meraxi bind that they traded all the pieces and they had a bishop pair each. And looks like how this is resolving is, okay, bishop's traded on c3, queen's traded on c3. And this is just totally drawish. So the time factor is definitely favoring Nathan a bit. And I also know Nathan will never really offer a draw. He'll play it out. So this is definitely going to get played out for another lot of moves. And UV is low on time, so if I see anyone winning, it's probably Nathan just putting the pressure on, but it's not through objective merit, because this position is totally equal. And then Daniel against Vincent. Wow, Daniel had a totally winning position earlier, and this has actually turned into a winning position for Vincent, who was game of the week last week. And Vincent earlier in this game just totally hung in exchange for nothing. But Vincent turning this around. We can see how tournament chess goes. Never give up. Because King G4, huge blunder. Oops. And H5, not the best way to exploit it. A bit crazy because you can take either pawn either way. Weird. He wants him to play here. Okay, this is his idea. He wants him to play here, and invade. But you can just take this way. But apparently, coming in here, grabbing this pawn, this rook can't get at it. Just coordinate the rooks and then come in. Not easy. That was what Engine linked best. So he better play king takes h5. I mean, this is crazy if you let this in. But total turnaround, bit of a tragedy for Daniel. But nice game for Vincent. Besides, of course, blundering the fork, but we all can make a mistake for one move, and it's nice to turn a game around. Yeah, Jeremy against Thaddeus. Let's see how this ended. So queen trade. He's just up a queen pawn. Want a second pawn. Plus has the better bishop and rook work a lot better together than knight and rook. Knight and queen work very well together. So white not only has a ton of extra pawns, he's got, you know, the iron shield or whatever, and a totally dominant rook on the 7th, going to pick up more material. Jeremy just decided to call it, which I don't blame him. So very well played by Thaddeus. All right. I usually was gonna end at 10, but I'm gonna just stay live till the games end. But I'm gonna take another break here, and I will stay live until all the games end. But we'll just leave it on board 2 for now. You can see them playing on camera. So this is Chris Kalina. You can see on camera on the right, playing against Thomas, trying to convert this rolling pastors ending, which he's totally winning at this point. And I will be right back. We see Chris zoned in, trying to convert his win. No position more stressful than a winning position. Let's look at Eddie trying to convert against Ryan on increment. Both on increment now. So this will be interesting. Let's watch this live. It's a blitz game. Classical chess turned blitz. This is what happens when both players tank forever in the first 20 moves. I'm not sure which player has a higher blitz rating, but I'm sure both play a lot of blitz online. Ryan down to 10 seconds. Gotta move, gotta move. Oh, he moves with 8 seconds left. Bit of a delay. Both players extremely nervous right now. How could you not be with less than a minute on your clock? Bishop h4, knight takes f4. Steady Eddie, about to coast to victory. This is looking like he could win it in bullet. Okay, expecting knight takes f4. Slam that out, get the pressure on his clock. Nice. Eddie on his way to victory despite his time usage. But that's how it goes for Eddie. All right. Ryan likes to stay a plus away from the knight. That's why he's selecting that square. He has some positional skill, but at the same time, restricting his own bishop. And also playing on increment. He's just playing moves. Eddie's the one who's really got to think here, and Ryan's got to kind of react. Eddie, though, don't flag. Don't flag in a winning position. 10 seconds. Oh. Eddie flagged on my screen. I'm sure he played a move by now, though. Yep, he played a move with 5 seconds left. Rook takes c1. Okay, we can also see a board. We can see a move on board 2. I feel like we want to stick with the action, but let's just take a glance. Okay, 93. He's converting his rolling passers, so let's just let's stick with the action. That's not on camera, but it's one table over. You guys can't see it, but it's off to the left. These guys are battling on increment. So a bit interesting. You can see also how move count affects games. These guys are on move 25, and they're both playing on increment. because they both tanked in the opening. Versus board 2, we got 18 minutes against 10 minutes, the same exact time, because they're on move 53. Right? These guys played with normal time usage. You get an extra 30 seconds every move you make in 90 plus 30, so you really can't just agonize in the opening phase. It doesn't help you win chess games. The opening matters. I'm as big of an opening nerd as anyone, but I'm down for an opening tank now or then, maybe once, but gotta save your time for calculation. Okay, come in with check. So why is this so winning? The main reason is material. Both sides have 3 pieces, but black has an extra 2 pawns. They're both healthy. So this bishop pair turned out to not matter so much. Always nice to have a bishop pair, but not quite worth 2 clean pawns. Let's just take a glance at, wow, Nathan against Yuvi totally blew up. It was Drosh, and now Nathan's totally winning. So let's see what happened here. So Nathan doing Endgame Masterclass. Okay, it looks like Yuvi a bit imploded here because D5 total blunder. And looks like Nathan found his only moves because B4 pretty good here, but C takes C5 totally winning. He found it in the game. Trade rook, trade rook, trade rook, trade, take, and E5. Killer move. And Nathan found it. Only move in the position, plus 3.6. Taken here, which Yuvi was expecting, is totally equal. So E5, he's just going to come in, collect this pawn this way. So UV total positional blunder here, overlooking E5. Which you'd have to see before he played D5, so it makes sense. UV also kind of going for some winning chances himself. Computer just liked locking down this week, locking this down with A4, preventing B4 options, which we see after D5 actually B4 was an option as well. So crazy. But also Nathan, excellent endgame player, and it shows why he's a national master. Finding this awesome E5 move, and now it looks like black's positionally busted with a terrible bishop, and this king's got access to that pawn, and you're going to win that pawn. And they're going to be a clean pawn up. Same color bishop ending, which is winning. So we'll jump back to this. Let's see if Ryan and Eddie are finished yet. Let's see Chris tanking, Chris coasting though. But that's what you got to do in a winning position. It doesn't matter if you're +4. You got to just focus and close it out, because it feels terrible to blow it. Eddie just totally coasting at this point. Up 2 clean pawns. But they're still playing on increment. It's still a blitz game. You never know what can happen in a blitz game. Just going to leave it on Ryan against Eddie for the moment. Alright, these guys still playing on increment, but Eddie coasting at this point. Over a minute on his clock, feeling good now. You know, anything over a minute is good for Eddie. Well, don't play king takes d5. Rook d5 check. Even I can see that tactic. Gotta take the rook now. Now you gotta play a rook against two bishops, but you can pin. Eddie making a little difficult on himself. Gotta find tactics here on increment. Knight takes c4, only move here. So already a success by Ryan in such a losing position to make, anytime you can make your opponent find an only move, even if it's an obvious only move, you're giving yourself swindle chances. Okay, Eddie finds it. What you don't want to play is moves that give your opponent the top three moves that are all winning for them, right? So if you can find anything that could make anything happen. This isn't even totally obvious yet. I mean, it's two bishops against a rook. This actually would be kind of winning if black didn't have extra pawns, plus looks like some immediate pin tactical pressure. So this game's still interesting. So yeah, wow. There's no way to get any immediate play against these bishops, so it looks like it's just winning on the merit of the three extra pawns. So two bishops beat a rook unless you have three extra pawns. Then the rook beats the two bishops because three pawns matter. But we still got a whole ending to play here. Okay, attacking h5 makes perfect sense. Just play h4. h4 is a move you can build some time with, so play it quickly. He does. now you're Eddie. Like, you know you're winning. You know you're plus 3 pawns. You know things are kind of solidified. All your pawns are on dark, and no one's attacking nothing anymore. So now you want to make some quick moves to build up a little bit of time in order to usher this win. So yeah, I mean, if it was me here, I'd just play something quick like Rook C7. Right. I'm just going to play quick moves that I know are safe and I know are not. I'm going to blunder check every time, right? I'm going to make sure I'm not hanging a skewer, or I'm not dropping a pawn. But otherwise, I'm just going to play quick moves to build up some time, because I can just move rook, 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 rook. I move my rook, you move your bishop. I move my rook, you move your bishop. Each time this happens, we gain 30 more seconds. And this is actually the opposite of what I would do. I mean, it looks fine. Now he's going to play rook a8, rook h8 afterwards, but you're dominating. Just build up some time. And once you have 3 minutes and 30 seconds on your clock, then calculate h3. But totally winning, and actually a winning move. So being a bit overcritical. Also can be extra critical of Eddie because he's my buddy. We chat daily. He plays 15 openings, but he somehow knows them all well. So I don't know how he manages that, but he loves chess. He knows chess well. And he has time trouble issues like many good chess players. All right. All right. He's below a minute. Not quite, you got to get above a minute. Just a quick glance at the other boards. Chris against Thomas. It's just a total rolling pastors endgame conversion. This is +5, top 3 lines. And it looks like they're still playing, but I wouldn't be shocked to see a resignation soon, because Thomas probably wants to go home. And he knows this ain't happening. So, and then let's also check here. Ooh, wow, draws here. So this was Vincent hung the fork. Daniel had the winning position. Daniel kind of went for fancy tactics that backfired and let Vincent get back in the game. Plus, then Vincent actually got a better position at one point when White played King G4 due to crazy computer things. But looks like this is petered out to. Okay, he decided to sack the rook for the bishop and a pawn. Not the worst decision of all time. That's eventually what you have to do anyways, and you're worried about this pawn queening, so I can see that. And now we got a 2-pawn rook endgame. This is total draw. So fair result, I would say, for this game. I would say both players made some big mistakes. Both players made some great moves. A normal, dramatic back and forth chess battle between two players well suited to play each other. I think if either of these players had played Connor tonight, making a mistake, he might just take over and dominate. But that doesn't matter. When you play classical chess at a competitive level, you end up getting paired against equal rated players, and you end up in these back and forth battles that are dramatic, and both sides are winning, and that's what's a lot of fun. So let's jump back though to okay, Eddie's, it's still a battle of increment, but Eddie's totally dominating here. I actually learned a bit of something tonight, yeah, because I love two bishops against a rook, but three pawns is too much, so I wonder what is not too much. I'm going to have to research that. Maybe ask Connor. Connor's an endgame expert, and I love to ask him endgame questions, so I wonder what his threshold would be to take two bishops against a rook as far as extra pawns. When would you take the rook side? How many extra pawns? It's because clearly 3 is more than enough. So Eddie on his way here. A pawn looking very hard to stop. You're going to see bishop f7 next, but don't think that's solving your problems. Just support it behind and roll. I mean, you can blockade then, so he'll probably play rook b8. Computer likes rook a8, but I don't love just letting him blockade it. I mean, what's wrong with rook b8? Nothing really. I mean, I guess my plan of playing rook b2 a2 is not really working though. But you can still play rook b2 and let's get this passer going. So I mean, I like playing this way actively a little bit more than playing what the computer likes. Because yeah, rooks belong behind past pawns, but I always get a bit nervous against two bishops, If I mess up, okay, he's got two bishops. But you don't really get nervous at this point. The worst, you're never going to lose. White doesn't have enough pawns. I guess that's also what can make you feel a lot more comfortable in rook against two bishops is if you have a few extra pawns, white doesn't have that many pawns left, so you're probably, worst case, going to draw. Versus if you're totally equal pawns, the bishops are going to totally outclass the square control, and the large amount of pawns left on the board is going to allow you to eventually maneuver and win an endgame. But yeah, here we can even imagine if some crazy things happened, Black's got drawing chances by just eventually trading off those two pawns and sacrificing his rook for one of the bishops. Especially, yeah, Black's got a really easy drawing mechanism if we think about it, because he can eventually push this pawn to trade this pawn, and then he's got this pawn which is on dark, so then all he has to do is trade his rook for the dark square bishop. And he could put his king in the corner, and this pawn would never queen even with an extra bishop. So that's obviously stupid things to think about when Black's really winning, but it's nice to know like you really can never lose unless you flag, which Eddie might. No, he never flags. Yep, we got rook endgame here. A bit strange. The dude stack his rook. That's got to be a DGT error. this is probably a draw. So last game of the night here, playing on increment. Yeah, despite these guys using all their time in the opening, they're still the last game of the night, so they still got all their bonus time, right? But they got it all on increment instead of getting it up front and then thinking about the conversion. Okay, he did go for rook b8 like I hoped. He went king c1. Okay, and instead of rook b2, like I was thinking, he went for rook b4. Okay, going for this pawn. Logical. Yeah. Okay, he checked. He's doing a little bonus check, and then he's going to take. Because he saw the square is controlled, I can get his king farther away from my pawn. Great, let me do that. And if he blocks, he'll probably still take. Now he's preventing the king from coming up this way. Okay, I love this is clinical. Yeah, let's get a critical push of this, but no, actually, let's just grab these pawns. Now let's grab this pawn. I love being extra sweaty when you're winning. I mean, there's no reason to give your opponent any possible hopes of anything. You know, people definitely have the right to play on till mate, but you also have the right to sit there and tank and think as long as you want, even in a totally winning position, like, and play super safe moves that give them no counterplay at all, and just kind of say like, what are you doing, bro? Like, this isn't blitz, this isn't 3+0, you're not going to win with some dirty trick, but you can try, and I get that it works now and then, but this is a good way to handle it, is just, no, you know, I don't need to queen my a pawn instantly, let me just clean up these extra pawns on the king side, and what are your bishops doing? Here we got a few more moves. Yep, I'd take h2 now. You're playing on increment, you don't need to calculate a2. I'd take h2, I'd play g4, I'd play g3. I mean, what's he gonna play? Bishop b3. Yep, clinical. And bishop b3, rook still defends the pawn. Just played g4. So yeah, this one's over. So nice game by Eddie. Nice marquee matchup on board one. Chris taking advantage. Yeah, I'll just do a quick recap of everything. I'm not going to go through the games since I kind of did a bit, but and it's pretty late. But nice marquee matchup. Dane taking down Connor with a sweet piece of calculation with bishop takes g7. Chris against Thomas, we pretty much had a totally dead equal game, and Chris kind of maneuvered in and won a pawn in the end game. Took it from there. Ryan against Eddie had a pretty equal game throughout, but Eddie had his usual time trouble issues. We had a nice increment battle, and Eddie on his way to closing this out. Nathan against UV. We basically had a totally equal dragon game where there's nothing much to play for. UV made one blunder with d5, and Nathan found really accurate moves, including this nice move e5 to take this game. Albert against Robert was the 1400, totally upsetting. The 2150 playing the Latvian Gambit with engine perfect moves. Like, Albert is obviously an awesome talent, and we're looking forward to seeing him grow towards higher ratings. Hopefully I don't have to play him until he's at least 2000. Norm against Michael. We got a nice upset here. Norm upsetting Michael plus 300 rating with just nice game here that we discussed earlier. Thaddeus against Jeremy. Nice game in the open section where we had just nice pressure from white, activating other pieces and really outclassing black in piece activity, and able to cash that in. And we also had Daniel against Vincent, so this was a pretty even game. Then Vincent just hung an exchange, one move blunder. Daniel had a winning position. And then Daniel in his winning position kind of went for some crazy tactics, spiced things up when he didn't need to, and Vincent came back, even got a winning position at one point. And then Daniel ended up just coming back in the end game, and looks like, wow, actually this is still live. I thought this was headed towards a totally drawn rook ending, but now it looks like Daniel's actually about to win the rook ending. So totally dramatic game here. But not even totally clear he's going to win this rook ending, because he needs to realize the final operation here, which I'm sure he will. This king's pretty far. So dramatic game here, but back and forth, and I would say, yeah, ending up in Daniel's side makes some sense, since Vincent did hang that exchange pretty early. And yeah, we have a final result now too on Eddie against Ryan. Looks like Ryan decided to resign here. So awesome night overall. I feel like we had some pretty good games, and we had a lot of viewers. We got 4 viewers live. We had 4 or 5 viewers live throughout the night. So thank you guys for tuning in and checking it out. I hope. Yeah, looks like we got Eddie in the chat saying he almost botched it. Yep. If only he had some time to think, yeah. But good job on Eddie. I'm sure Eddie, maybe Eddie will be playing Connor next week, since Eddie won, Connor lost. We'll see. That could be an interesting matchup. But yeah, we had a pretty nice night tonight. So, and we actually have a 5-round tournament this month, so we'll get one more round in the same tournament next week. And we'll be starting at 7 p.m. next Thursday. So thanks for tuning in, guys. And we'll see you next week.